Across human history, mankind has always respected the power of two things: rocks and fire. With the combination of minerals of the earth and the embers of an inferno, man has been able to create weapons, tools, buildings, walls, statues, technology, and so much more. Even for those that love to work out, we embody the power of rocks and fire through the pursuit of rock hard abs, buns of steel, and of course, boulder shoulders. Hello and welcome, my fellow main characters. My name is Bam, and today I'm going to take you guys through my top 5 shoulder exercises so that you can develop some nice, well-defined shoulders. So wherever you go, you can be sure to stand proud. Starting out at number 5, guys, pike push-ups. In my opinion, pike push-ups is a great introductory movement to targeting your shoulders in a workout, especially if you don't have access to weights. It is a movement pattern that is not too difficult for most people to get an introduction to, but there is some limitations for people if you have any specific injuries, especially when it pertains to your shoulders. But here's some positioning cues to keep in mind when trying to execute a pike push-up. First, get into the standard pike or push-up position. From there, you're going to want to walk your feet to your hands, adjusting the distance to match your skill level. The closer your feet is to your hands, generally the more of your body weight will be creating tension on your shoulders. Finally, tilt your head as you make your way down to the ground so that your chin is the part that makes contact with the ground first and then come back up. I personally like the pike push-up because of the barrier to entry from a cost perspective is 0. As long as you have a floor, you could go into a pike push-up. I think it's a great option for people that don't have a gym membership, but they still want to find some way to work on their shoulders. It's also good for relative strength development, right? So if you are the type of person that's interested in learning how to do a handstand push-up in the future, that pike push-up is a great introductory place to start at. I do have a couple of cons for the pike push-up. Even though the barrier to entry is pretty low from a cost perspective, there is a bit of a barrier to entry when it comes to like a physical perspective. To do the pike push-ups, you gotta have pretty decent and strong shoulders. I wouldn't recommend doing a pike push-up if you can't do either 10 to 15 push-ups with no problem or no pain. Also, if you have any shoulder injuries or suffer from shoulder pain or excessive shoulder tightness, I don't think pike push-ups might be the wisest thing for you to do. Also, from a tracking perspective, body weight is just hard to track, right? What I mean by that is hard to track the progression from, hey, this week we did a pike push-up, next week, can we do the elevated pike push-up? The following, a couple months from now, can we do the wall-assisted handstand push-up, right? It is not as linear or straightforward as, picking up weights, right? Like this week you did 12.5 pounds. Next week, how about we try 15 pounds? It's very easy for us to create progression when it comes to weightlifting, but calisthenics is a little bit harder to track. Number 4 on my list is going to be the cable/dumbbell side lateral raises. I like the side lateral raises for targeting the shoulders, primarily for targeting the mid-delt. Your shoulder is broken up into 3 muscle groups primarily, right? You have your anterior, so your front delt. You have your lateral delt, which is the one in the middle, and then you have your rear delt, the unseen hero that no one really touches when at the gym. The biggest benefit for the side lateral raises, especially from an aesthetic point of view, that's what really helps to widen your frame. That's what helps you to generate that V-taper. I know a lot of people like to talk about developing the width of your back, which does play a big role into it, but also what helps to define especially those points on the V is going to be your shoulders, right? And working on your side lateral raises is going to help you to do that. Form tips to keep in mind while doing side lateral raises, specifically for dumbbell raises, you have to do a little bit of an adjustment for the cable raises, but we'll only talk about the dumbbell raises for now because that's a little bit more accessible. For dumbbells, you're going to stand with your feet shoulder width apart. Core is slightly braced for stability. As you lift the dumbbells, have a slight bend in your elbows, and instead of your arms directly to your side, bring your hands in a bit closer to the center of your body, about 4 to 5 inches. Okay, pros for the side lateral raises. Accessible. This is one of those movement patterns that's incredibly accessible. You can bring the intensity down or you can bring it up. Even though I feel the side lateral raises is one of those movement patterns that has a pretty low cap for most people. Like, most people aren't going to side lateral raise 40 to 50 pounds.
Yeah, buddy! Wait!
There's definitely some people out here doing that, but one can argue how well are they maintaining proper form and how much are they really getting out of the intended use of that exercise. Can be done with a variety of different weights, right? With not just dumbbells, but with kettlebells, with cables, with resistance bands, any kind of weight you have access to. You could even do it with a loaded water bottle or even a bag of some kind, right? Just as long as you're able to comfortably hold a handle and you keep the weight you're using even on both sides, the side lateral raise can be done that way. Cons, you need external equipment. If you have a gym membership, this is not going to be an issue for you. If you have dumbbells or weights at home, this shouldn't be an issue for you. Again, you can mitigate that barrier to entry with any form of weight you could easily handle in one hand. The other downside of this movement pattern is that it only targets one portion of your shoulders, the lateral side, so the mid delt. Okay, so my number 3 might be an extremely unpopular opinion. My number 3 is the seated barbell / dumbbell military press. For many of us that go to the gym, this is definitely one of those staple go-to bread and butter movement patterns for building those shoulders. But this is my number 3. First, let's go into the form tips for it. You want to make sure you sit with your back against a bench for support. Grip the bar slightly wider than shoulder width. As you press up, don't fully lock out at the top. Keep tension on the delts. And then lower the bar to just below your chin level, then press back up. Pros: 1, it is phenomenal. It is fantastic for building strength, size, and stability. If you want to pick a movement that's good for just putting size and strength into your shoulders, this is a great movement for that. Because it's a weightlifting movement, it is very easy to progress and it's very easy to adjust. One of the things I always recommend to my clients when I'm working with them, especially if they're hypertrophy, aka muscle building clients, always shoot for either a 70 to 75% rate of perceived effort with your movements that you're doing, and you should be at a good place, like the sweet spot for muscle development, while also making sure you can recover and come in for the next workout. Bro, I'm sweating, man. It's literally 92 degrees outside and I don't want to turn on my AC, man. Another reason I like this movement, it hits the front and side delts really well, and you also get a lot of tricep and core engagement. Great movement for building up strength, building up mass. Great for targeting the front and side delts and getting a little bit of tricep action in there. Here's where the cons start to begin for me with the military press. One muscle group that we're missing when it comes to targeting for getting that 3D shoulder, those boulder shoulder effects, the rear delt. The military press is great for hitting the front and side delts, but it is pretty lackluster when it comes to hitting the back of the shoulders that helps to give you that 3-dimensional look. Not the most beginner friendly. It's something that is easy to set up, but it is very easy to kind of get wrong in terms of positioning. For beginners, would I recommend doing the military press, especially with the barbell? No. I would definitely go towards the dumbbell. The dumbbell variation might be more accessible for most people, and then you could build up from there. But when it comes to the barbell, even though, yes, from a strength perspective, you can load that bad boy up and climb up and feel like a monster while pushing that weight over your head, relax, cowboy. If you're just starting off, go with the dumbbell variation. It's a bit easier. Do not go with the barbell variation, please, if you're just starting off, especially the standing variation. Another con about it, the setup for this is kind of annoying, especially if we're talking about the barbell variation of this, right? Because you need to take up a whole squat rack, you need to get a bench in there and set that bad boy up, you need to line up the bar to where it's like lined up with your chest. You need to adjust and make sure your wrist position is in place, right? It's just a lot of setup. So for most people coming into the gym on a limited time schedule, you might not have access to that machine, or especially a lot of gyms, they have limited squat racks. And so you might be waiting like 5-10 minutes for somebody else to finish, or you might even be in line waiting for the squat racks to be available for you to go through all that setup. So also not the best when it comes to protecting from shoulder injuries. My opinion about this might be different if I didn't have a shoulder injury that I've been working through already before. And from my experience, the especially the barbell variation, not the best for helping you to recover from any shoulder injuries you may have. Moving on to my number 2, and I kind of foreshadowed this a little bit earlier in the video. My number 2 is actually the rear delt flies, specifically the cable variation. Now the reason why I put the cable rear delts as my number 2, primarily because when it comes to the other shoulder movements, I know they're going to get shine in most people's routines. Most people are going to do their military press. Most people are going to do their dumbbell shoulder press. If you're a calisthenics guy, you're going to be doing your pike push-ups. But the amount of people that neglect their rear delts is astonishing. I gotta be honest, I was guilty of this too when I first started my fitness journey. I never really thought about working the rear delts. Fitness influencers I was following at the time never even brought up rear delt work. And that's why it's my number 2, because I know other people are going to be lacking in it. So this is important to keep in mind. I know you're going to do your shoulder press, but please do not lack on your rear delt. Get some rear delt work in. Positioning tips to keep in mind for the rear delt. Set the cable at about upper chest level. Grab the opposite handle with each hand. Step back slightly and bend forward from your hips. Pull the cable outward in a reverse hug motion. Keep arms slightly bent and squeezing your shoulder blades together at the top. Still sweating, man. Jeez Louise. At this rate, I'm going to need a towel, bro. I'm feeling like a preacher right now on Sunday. Pros for the rear delt work. Working on your rear delts actually gives your shoulders more of a complete look, right? Especially from the side. If the rear delts aren't developed, your shoulders can look very flat. It can look very two-dimensional. But if you work on the rear delts, it kind of gives this more complete, again, 3D look to your shoulders and your frame, giving your physique this more full aesthetic look. From a health perspective, the rear delts is also great. If you work on the rear delts, it's also great for correcting posture and also helping with shoulder stability. When I injured my shoulder, the thing that was the most likely culprit for my injury was my rear delts. I did a lot of benching like a lot of lifters do in the gym, and I would always get this like shoulder tweak right here to here. I always felt like I had to work through it and stretching out my chest and my shoulder and seeing if that helped. What was really happening is that my stability on the bench was weak because my rear delts were underdeveloped. So not only does a rear delt work help to improve your posture by helping you set your posture more back, but it also helps with just your general stability of your upper body. All right, con, you need equipment. That's a big con of working on a rear delt is you need, especially the cable machine, you need access to a cable machine. And there are some seated variations. There are some machines that are more seated and more available at gyms. Also, another con is that it can be tricky to set up, right? It can be tricky, not necessarily tricky with actually setting up the machine, but tricky for you to find the right position for you to engage your rear delt and not have the middle of your back, like the rhomboids and all that in that area kind of take control and authority and tension away from your rear delt. So you kind of have to play around with it, start developing that mind-muscle connection until you can feel your rear delt start cooking, and that's the area where you want to be at. All right, my fellow main characters, we have come to the number 1, to the peak, to the creme de la creme of shoulder development workouts. To build those bolder shoulders, the thing that's going to be your most valuable asset in your routine. If shoulders is a priority for you, this should be the first movement you think about. And that movement is the dumbbell Arnold shoulder press. Now, this is one of those exercises that was created by Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day, and it's one of those movements that is just absolutely fantastic because it's a dumbbell shoulder movement that hits all 3 heads of the shoulder. I'm talking about your front, I'm talking about your lateral, and I'm talking about your rear. Because it's able to hit all 3 heads of the shoulder, this makes this the most complete shoulder workout for you. Position tips! Start with dumbbells in front of your face, palms facing you. As you press upwards, rotate your wrists so your palms face forward at the top. Reverse the motion on the way down for a controlled full range rep. pros. It's going to hit your whole shoulder, right? It's hitting all three heads of the shoulder. Your shoulder is covered. It's great for building size, building stability. It's also a good movement to work on control. A little bit of cons. It's taking external resistance, so you need equipment, you need dumbbells, you need a gym membership. This is not going to be a primary movement for building strength in your shoulders. It's a great movement for building size and building control and also getting more defined in your shoulders, but it's not a good movement for developing strength. Yes, you can build more strength in, you can work with heavier and heavier weights, but are you going to be able to progress at the same rate as the military press?
No.
But from a bodybuilder to an aesthetic point of view, if you want to get that round, nice cap, bowling ball aesthetic shoulders, the dumbbell Arnold shoulder press is going to be your number one pick. And there you have it, guys. These are my top 5 shoulder exercises that I would recommend that you add to your rotation, add to your toolkit of different shoulder movements you could add to your routine so that you could start making some nice boulder shoulder gains, have some rear delts that put Final Form Frieza to shame, you know? But anyways, my fellow main characters, that's gonna be it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. And always remember before you go that yes, you are the main character of your own story. My name is Bam. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace!